Okay, and we're off and running. Welcome everybody to the City of Kingston Tree Commission meeting. Today is February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Glad that everybody could be here. We're at City Hall. It's 5 o'clock. My name is Suzanne Cahill. I'm Planning Director for the City of Kingston. We are live streaming and recording the session just so that everybody is aware. We will begin. It is 5:02 p.m. We call the meeting to order. I'm just going to go around and ask members to introduce themselves. Vince, I'm going to start on your side, please.
Vince Archer, and I'm just a member of the Tree Commission.
Amanda O'Neill, member of the Tree Commission.
Evan Kin, a member of the Tree Commission.
Elizabeth Collins, member of the Tree Commission, liaison or representative from the Memorial Tree Fund on the Tree Commission. Anita Collins, I'm the liaison with the Conservation Advisory
Thank you. And we have Kyla D. Day, Assistant Planner from my office. So we will start. We did have one application. There is, I guess they're all gone. Some agendas were on the table. We do have a speaker, and she is here. We've allotted 5 minutes. So if we want, we can just adjust the agenda and allow Lynn to go first. Lynn, just introduce yourself and.
So I'm Lynn Woods. I live in Midtown. I'm a journalist, but I'm not here as a journalist. I'm here as a citizen. I've written letters advocating for trees in Bluestone. So I think, Suzanne, you were going to distribute my letter. So if you guys have my letter, you know what I'm here about. But I just wanted to bring to the Tree Commission's attention the fact that with the Franklin Street Complete Streets project, some of the trees were preserved because some of us were upset that all the trees were going to be cut down. But in the end, every single tree was cut down. So it seems like when contractors come in and do these engineering projects, the trees always lose. And I'm concerned about Henry Street because, as you know, Suzanne, I lobbied for those 2 maple trees in a part of the city where there's no trees. And I'm really concerned that they're going to get cut down along with some other trees on Henry, the corner of Clinton and Henry. There's a set of trees that actually were planted by the city. I found out from the homeowner. And it just seems like every single time there's a sidewalk project or the tree always gets cut down ultimately. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back was the tree on Wall Street at the foot of Franklin Street. There's a stone house and there was a large tree. Now, the application to take it down said it was a sugar maple. Then I heard it was a Norway maple. There is a difference. Sugar maples are native. So particularly when native trees are cut down, that's disturbing because we have lots of Norway maples, which are invasive. But that tree was cut down. The sidewalk has not been fixed. The reason was the sidewalk, and the engineer at the time, who was Greg, he's since moved on. That was his last name.
Greg Krupp.
Yeah, who was fantastic, by the way. He really communicated. I mean, I think he worked with homeowners. But, we were sure that tree is going to be saved. And every single tree was cut down. And the ones that were saved, which there were probably about 7 or 8, were ultimately all cut down. So I don't quite understand why some were cut down and then, when the project underway, all the other ones were cut down. I mean, what is that about? Was that the contractor's decision? Did the city know about it? And I just wish that the city could come up with some plan. Maybe the Tree Commission could, lay the groundwork that we would have a program for protecting large trees. Because there are amazing oak trees on Cedar. There are trees on Green Street where the sidewalk is, the roots have caused sidewalk uplift. So it's a problem all over the city. But if we're going to have every single tree cut down because of the sidewalk, we're going to lose a lot of trees. And I know other communities, like I was in Orange, New Jersey, they have, and even Saugerties, I have noticed large trees with walkabouts. So I don't understand why we can't do this. Come up with a program, give it to contractors, and a way to circumvent trees so we don't always lose the trees for the sidewalk. And as I'm sure you all know, it was in my letter. Particularly with climate change, we talk about being a climate smart community. Well, one of the smartest things for the climate is to preserve large trees. Because even though we are doing a lot of tree plantings, which I'm thrilled about, I'm really happy about that, it's going to be 50, 60, 100 years before these trees get to be the size of the ones we're taking down. And there's a lot of research indicating that large trees absorb huge amounts of carbon. Small trees don't even make a dent until they're 50 years old. So we're talking about a time issue. You know, it takes decades to get large trees. They're irreplaceable. So I really want to advocate, and I've been advocating for it before, for some kind of policy to, and by the way, our tree inventory, which was on the city website, one of its priorities is protect large, healthy trees at all costs. I mean, this has been, the city itself has made this, has noted how this is valuable and important, and yet it just seems like when push comes to shove, it doesn't happen. And we're losing a lot of trees. Somebody cut down a whole bunch of trees in their backyard. No, nothing we can do about that. We don't have a tree ordinance like some communities, but we've lost so many large trees in Midtown. And plus with the ice storm, there was a lot of tree damage. I lost a huge catalpa, half the catalpa fell down. With the drought, all these, the tornado and the drought and the ice storm really had an impact on trees. So I feel like we should be really making an effort to protect large trees on this street. I know that you have no jurisdiction over trees in yards. We're talking about street trees. And again, I'm really thrilled that we're doing all this planting. And by the way, I did check the new zoning code and it said that that tree that was cut down, the city is supposed to, by the new code, plant small trees that sort of, I don't know what the formula is to equate, not the carbon absorption, because that's impossible.
It's the size deviation.
So I assume there are gonna be trees planted there where that big tree was taken out?
I don't know, it's obviously not in that immediate area, but they are supposed to be replanting additional trees to cover
But I just don't
in
understand
close
why-
proximity.
But Suzanne, I don't understand why they cut it down.
I understand.
But
what
why
you're
did they cut it down? Was it just the sidewalk? Because the sidewalk is still a mess. I mean, I feel like the tree is gone and the sidewalk is a hazard. I guess they're waiting to spring, but I just feel like we hear this over and over again, that it's all about sidewalks. And I just feel like we need to, there has to be a real effort, a policy to start Hi. So anyway, I just wanted to speak my piece. I really appreciate letting me come in person.
No,
I read
I'm
letters.
glad you did.
We talked, but I mean, I just find it frustrating and I just worry about those oak trees on Cedar.
I mean, a lot of points that you make are extremely valid. I think it is part of some of the frustration of the commission members as well, seeing a lot of these older, larger trees being taken down. And granted, we did review the Henry Street, the one at the end of Franklin Street that came down on Wall. And I walk by it all the time. It was a lovely tree and it was very sad to see it go. We are in the midst of doing a couple of things. One, obviously the zoning code update that you're familiar with, and there are some street design standards in there that we have been reviewing and the commission has made some comments already on. But we're also looking at the code in the city code, chapter 373, that governs the tree commission. So it's very timely that you're here. I think it's an issue that maybe we should think about and maybe strengthening our code per se as well
Yeah,
to reinforce.
because one of the
those
things the code
initiatives.
talks about, and I know I talked to
Yeah.
Victor Dover, the guy who ran the consultancy that did the zoning, that he's done a whole study that trees actually slow traffic. We know that's a huge problem in the city with all these deaths happening. People speeding, they really speed down Fair and Wall. So again, the tree planting will help that, but there's a time problem. Because you can plant all the trees you want, but it's gonna be 50, 75, 100 years. And also, I live on Pine Street, 68 Pine, between Henry and Franklin, so this is kind of my neighborhood. And we know that Midtown is economically disadvantaged compared with other parts of the city. Many streets don't have any, particularly Henry Street. I mean, that whole part of Henry where the maples are, there's nothing. So if those trees get cut down, it's gonna be pretty devastating. And I don't know, but the contractors come and do the sidewalk and that's what they're gonna do though. I've never seen a contractor save a tree. So I'm almost expecting it. So I'm here to warn you, we should lobby for that because the idea was, we talked about it, Suzanne, that tree would be preserved, those two trees.
Right.
And the other ones across the street were cut down, because that's where the wires are going. I mean, I know all about the project, and it's a sad thing, you're not gonna preserve the bluestone, it's a whole other issue.
I just have a question, so,
Sure.
so is that belong to the department, I think like the project itself, belongs to the Department of Public Works, right?
No, engineering, the engineering department is overseeing the reconstruction projects. They did the Franklin Street one, it's a complete street, safe routes to school projects, both of them.
But did the contractor come to the city about those trees that were taken down, or what happened? They just did it?
On Franklin Street.
Yeah, on Franklin Street.
The city, they brought that to the commission. In fact, we have a member, I think, Amanda, you sat on
Franklin
the
Street.
Franklin Street Project Advisory Committee. And I think you're on the Henry Street one.
No, it
maybe.
wasn't on the Henry
I'm
Street.
trying to think who's on Henry, not you, you're on Schwank. Not you.
But I mean, who made that decision? Because those trees were not cut down.
Sarah was on that.
Oh, yeah, it was Sarah on Henry, you're right.
I thought one of them was because they had to put a handicap access.
That was the one at Mall
That
And
was the last one.
maybe that's not been done yet, but the idea
No,
was they had to
because-
put handicap access.
they cut the
Why
tree.
For the stone building, you mean? Which
By
property?
the stone building, yes. By the
Yeah.
stone-
It's pretty flat there,
For the crosswalks.
For the crosswalk.
but it's not at the crosswalk, it's at the foot of the street.
I understand.
It's not where the crosswalk is.
But apparently the root, I mean, the word I got was that the roots were going to impact this handicap accessibility, which was going to be very wide, has to be a certain
Well,
distance.
all I can say is, when this project happened, because I talked to Greg, I've been lobbying and talking to people about it, I was assured that tree is staying. Now, they analyzed everything. So I would have thought when they did the analysis, if they're gonna take every tree down, which was the original plan, by the way, and then people lobbied on the street, and I lobbied, and other people did, they decided to save like 7 of them, but including a young sycamore in front of our property, that was a really nice, healthy tree, and they just took everything down. So I don't quite get, number one, why didn't they take them down when they took the rest down? So at least we know what we're doing. And number two, when they did take the trees that were supposedly gonna be saved, who made that decision? Did contractors just do what they want, or,
No, it would have been,
so on
it would have
Henry,
had to been authorized
So on
by the
Henry
city
Street, what's
through
gonna
the
happen
engineering department.
what's gonna happen on Henry then? I mean, I'm wondering, are those trees gonna come down too? Because that seems to be the MO here.
We can follow up.
So Suzanne, if you can follow up, because those maples should not come down. And the other thing I want to say, and I know my time is up, and I really appreciate you listening to me, is that, you know, living there, I mean, I think people are just ignorant of all the wildlife and nature value of trees, besides the fact that in the summer, when it was really, really hot, I have trees in my yard, the shade was amazing. I mean, the shade makes an enormous difference. So again, for a climate smart community, we should be preserving absorbers of carbon, craters of shade. You know, you don't have to use as much air conditioning. I mean, everything that we should be doing, it's obvious that this should be important. I can't think, we can't call ourselves climate smart for not doing this. And the amount of shade, and also just, I have hawks, I have incredible birds, and I'm worried that they're not gonna be any more birds if they keep cutting these trees down. So, and when you start observing, you know, you start realizing what's there. You know, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I have a pollinator garden. It's incredible how much nature is in a tree. I mean, like Catalpa, there's like red-bellied woodpeckers in the middle of Midtown. You know, there's like hawk, I mean, it's incredible. So I think people are just ignorant, and I just wish we could make an effort for all these reasons.
I just want to say something just fair to the tree company, like tree commission is too, right? Because I think in general, when we accept the, you know, when we review like pruning or like, what else? You know, the tree, or like they want to remove the tree applications, we are very particular. We scrutinize
Right, I've heard
the
this.
reason, you know,
So that all-
why, and like if they need to remove the tree, we want them to replace the tree, because the one thing is like you say, you know,
Mhm.
like we want to make sure the city itself is continuing to grow, but not only economically, but it's also like in a natural, you know, a natural way, or, you know, the tree, you know, for, you know, it's really
Right.
important, right? And so like we care about that.
Yeah, you know, I understand that, but there was that oak on Clinton that was like, that was tragic. There was a beautiful oak.
But you also have to understand, like, there's a certain limitation.
I understand that. I know it's a city. I know there's a lot to balance. And the last thing, there's one other point I wanted to make before stopping. What was it? What was I going to say? something else when we started talking, so I don't remember what it was, sorry. But anyway, so I just want to put my 2 cents in, and I really want to make a point about Henry, because I live there and I gotta see I'm gonna see what happens. And I just, again, I think if we came up with in the zoning, maybe an amendment for how to, that this is a priority and then what to do about it, because there are a lot of places where the sidewalk is uplifted and those there are big trees there.
Well, I know we have recommended that those, I didn't know that this could be done before I got on the tree commission, that they be shaved and that they.
Yeah, oh, that's the other thing I was gonna say. So we're planting all these trees. If we have a drought this summer, that's the other thing about new trees. I mean, it's great, but they take a lot of water. You don't have to water these like old trees that are 100 years old. And several trees that the state planted on Greenhill died. So it takes a lot more maintenance, and we need to have an arborist. If we're gonna do all these plantings, I know that the mayor said that they cleaned up Broadway because it was looking really bad with those bioswales, which people talked about before they put them in. So we really need to have an arborist or somebody pruning, you have to take care of the trees, is what I'm trying to say.
We have I think we are gonna have an office in the city, right, or it's like someone.
Not a full-time one.
Not talking about part.
Well, it has to be full-time, but you said there is somebody that, because they're gonna
We're
have,
training
We
process.
have someone
yeah,
in
because,
training right now.
right, because it's
to
all
get
this
certified.
investment, I mean, they
Right.
could all die.
Yep.
So they're gonna need a lot of water, these trees. So again, with the drought and with the
Right, the
reservoir being
city,
low,
the city
yeah.
has invested in a watering truck. We have a tanker truck.
Oh, great.
And they did go last year during the drought. They filled up down in the Rondout and went around, and they did their best to try and keep up with it. It's a lot because it takes time.
Right.
But they did their best to do,
Right,
to
but
do
this is a-
immediate areas. And our office was asked, I know engineering was asked to say, where are the critical areas that we need to focus on? So we identified certain areas that they went out and did. And then as they were called, they did other areas. They tried to
Right.
help out at Kingston Plaza. They tried to help out where they planted some trees.
Right.
We tried to help out private investment at the same time, but we did focus on
Right,
Broadway.
because
and
we're
the
even supposed to
streets.
water.
Right.
And all the trees in my tree would have died.
Yeah.
So we had to water illegally, frankly. I mean, you know what I mean?
It was, it was not, the normal situation that no one could anticipate the drought that we went through. People came up with creative ways to,
Uh-huh.
collect what little rain
You
we
have the
did
bags.
get, or,
Right.
using the dehumidifier water. There were people that were using creative ways, when the shower was warming up.
Like
They were getting
recycling.
buckets of water that way.
Right,
So people were doing what they could,
right, right. But again, it's just when we're gonna invest in planting new trees, which I completely support, it does take another investment, because I planted trees, it takes a couple of years.
right?
And the large trees, you don't have to water at all. So again, large trees pay for themselves, they have all these benefits, and maybe it would be an education program for people. Anyway, thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
We do need to move on. We had the application for 184 Albany Avenue. That tree was removed, without authorization. DPW notified us when it was removed, and notified the property owner. I sent out, made her file an application, even though it was after the fact. And I also asked her to submit, a statement in writing, her reasoning for the removal, and some photographs. She did not have any real photographs of the tree. I believe it is one of the trees that was subject to Central Hudson's pruning activities. She did submit her letter. I sent it out by email. I don't know if everybody had an opportunity. I have a copy.
That looks like a really healthy tree.
Well, this picture is from 2012, I think.
Yeah,
This is
that's-
Google.
I mean,
just
if
a-
you just cut,
No, but that's
I mean, you
a
could- yeah.
Google
Couldn't you-
picture.
couldn't you
That's,
just cut a good portion of the top off and leave the bottom?
In 2012.
but that's 2012. I mean,
Okay.
you gotta understand,
Yeah, I don't
this
know
is a
what it
picture we
looks like
just
now.
took off of Google Earth, and that's the capture date. So just to have an idea
And they
of what
didn't,
was
and
there,
because
we
it's already
don't know.
gone, you don't know what it looked like when they cut it down.
But we don't know what it looked like just before it was cut down. I mean, there's no way, I don't have anything, to document what it looked
And what
like.
was
I
their
have
reason?
to,
It was dead, or
Huh?
what was their reason, or you haven't heard from them yet? people who cut it down? What was their reason?
I sent that out in the email, did you?
Oh,
There
you know
was a
what?
letter, can
Okay.
you pull up the letter,
Yeah.
Kyla?
I have my computer, but I didn't download it, so I,
Is this no problem?
Yeah, it doesn't, oh, there it goes, okay.
Move down a little bit.
I just planted it in 2002. Wow.
Is that the mutilated tree she's talking about?
That she planted in 2002, I think.
She's got a lot of accidents. Jeez.
Oh, it was replaced in 2002. All right.
So it looks like it's curb appeal. It's hard to know what it looked like and whether or not it could have been just cut down.
Most is curvy.
And I mean,
That's what I noticed as being the subject of the reasoning.
Not that it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, there was talk like in situations, but the reasoning behind it, I mean, I grade essays all the time was because of the curb appeal.
Should we got a picture, there's no way of knowing.
But since like it was a large tree, it's like the board should have been like a small canopy tree.
so bottom line is she is willing to plant replacement trees in the front of her house. She is thinking, however, on the, not along the road,
Like in her yard.
in her front yard, within the 20 feet. You see there's some planting areas just beyond the fence. She's willing to do something like that to replace.
Sounds like the trees helped her house from being struck. From what you said.
No, the house sits back way, I don't think.
I know, but you said that
Instead
both
of-
of those trees got hit, so it's gonna go right through a fence next time.
But she did say Central Hudson did a number on the trees,
A
Yeah.
couple of times.
so we don't know.
Yeah.
if
What
that's-
it looked like and whether you could have taken the top off and
Well,
still
Looks like it was-
maintained.
Yeah.
That way you could have rounded it right off right there.
Locust tree, I don't think it grows that well.
They must have really cut it back then.
Yeah, especially with the height here, like there's no space for the tree to grow.
So what is the committee's pleasure? I'm
Let's
gonna
leave
turn
that
the
up.
lights on too.
Tree plant, I think would be the best.
I would put a pine in.
Are we, should we say, since the new code is saying, okay, one tree is this wide, maybe you need to plant two trees or
Yeah,
something?
because if there's like a space maybe to plant another tree, like in the front or in the back as well.
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
Does your code have,
Is it-
if it's planted on private land, does your code cover that in the future?
20 feet from the curb. Considered, it's considered a,
So.
so she would plant right on the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
Is that-
So it's still within the 20 feet.
The space on the curb side, I don't think that's a big enough
It's gonna take time.
tree well. Should be like a four by four, I don't think. I'm not mistaken, I don't think it's 4 by 4.
it's fairly, I mean, it's fairly wide.
I mean, you can put like a smaller canopy tree in the front and a bigger in the back, I think it'd be perfect.
But then, when you say a smaller canopy tree, what size would the tree well be to support that? What size of tree well are you talking about? Wherever you plant the tree is a defined.
We're
space.
recommending 4x4 if possible.
Yeah, if possible, but.
3x3 would be an absolute minimum. 3x4 would be workable.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, I think the two would be
Yeah.
great.
So you think they could plant something on this side? Maybe that's where those maples were that she talked about. That was 20 years ago.
So they should be ready.
Yeah, I mean, she obviously
Likes-
enjoys, landscaping and, trees, I think are part of that, I mean, I think she, it's documented. It's unfortunate that this tree came down. But So I need a motion or whatever, some
Well,
commission member.
let's see, maybe,
Sounds like you should put a horn beam or something like that.
yeah, we
you know?
probably should, if we're gonna ask her to plant in by the street, that would have, that's under a line, so we need to make it.
Yeah.
Well,
street
she's
that's-
willing to plant inside,
Or just,
right, just inside.
I think that would be a better suggestion.
yeah, because it looks like there's more room.
Mhm.
But just one tree or two trees?
I would say 2 trees.
Yeah, one on each side.
Okay.
Does she
Do
have
we
room
want to
for two
suggest a
trees?
species or just allow her to choose? If she's
Something
inside,
native,
huh?
Something native.
Native?
And maybe not a sugar maple, because we have so many sugar maples, and that's not.
Else it would be too big. You might want to have somebody suggest something.
Yeah,
to
that's
her
what I'm
because,
thinking.
You know, sort of putting in locusts, you know, and stuff.
Well, what would your suggestion be?
I'd like to see the place.
Huh?
I'd like to see the place, but like I said, if it's in the back, okay, if it's in the back, it's away from the wires, so. So
So you
a
could get
medium
something
to large
bigger.
size tree.
Yeah,
Could be a place like that, it could be an American hornbeam, you know. that is
Okay.
Medium size.
We have
and it's
a
like-
list of.
Because it's not too hot there.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Yeah.
or different, or one of the black gums and stuff that are small.
Okay,
Something like that, or both of them could be black gums.
one of each.
We can
Okay.
share the list.
or send her their list of,
Yeah.
All right.
share the list and say a medium to large tree, and
Okay,
is there
Try to
room
get
for
her
two?
away from- Try to get her away from like locusts and stuff that are then gonna have branches heading towards the wires.
right.
And not maple, not a maple, because
Yeah, I made that
That's-
note. Okay.
So locusts, I would recommend that. Who's free for
which kind?
locusts?
No, not locusts. That's what George already said that, not
Yeah.
locusts and not sugar maples.
Yeah.
Okay. So I need a motion from someone, and this would also be with all the standard conditions, please.
I propose a motion, and the 2 trees, all of the city standard
Okay.
procedure.
And should we say behind the fence? The motion should include, behind
Yeah.
the fence.
I made a note of that. So Evan made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Amanda. Any discussion? Okay,
I heard members talking about 2 trees for one.
right, Evans was
Putting that requirement on
trees,
the wall.
2 trees,
Yeah,
not
he
sugar
said 2
maple,
trees.
not locust.
You don't think they're gonna like
Recommended
that?
maybe a hornbeam, American hornbeam, or a black gum. We'll share the
I-
list and all the standard conditions.
Yes,
So there's a motion and a second.
I wouldn't recommend forcing the homeowner to plant 2 trees. I
It's just
recommend
a-
replacing the tree that they took down. Just my opinion.
I think they could.
So replace the,
The tree that, the locust that they cut down, replace that with some.
and then 2 trees.
No, he's
just
saying
a
one,
tree.
rather than 2, just 1.
Okay,
He's saying, ask her to plant 1 tree.
But ideally too, like make the suggestion too, but like. But definitely
I
one.
think she's open. I mean, if you look at her letter, I mean, she's willing to replant. She says, additional trees.
Yeah.
So she
And
mentions,
they took 2 maple, there's a lot of trees that
Yeah.
have gone up and down, and she did plant 2 before, she said, but one got hit by it twice.
You can look for like the options to plant on the sidewalk.
I
Well,
think,
that's what we were just talking about.
I don't know, but I mean, like if you have to.
yeah, I don't think she wants to plant along the street because of the history of
Like
the accidents that have happened. I think she is agreeable to replanting, but she doesn't want to plant something under the wires that will ultimately maybe succumb to Central Hudson again if they survive no accidents. And I think she's willing to plant on the inside to avoid the wires, and she's agreeable to 2.
What about those arborvitae? How close can you plant to that?
Which room is there on it?
Yeah, I don't, that's the thing, I can't tell
see.
whether there's room.
Yeah. Might be enough room in the back of them there, but there's still.
It curves around in a circle. You can see the
Yeah, it's a circular drive. There
curve
is
right
some
there,
land
you can see
there.
it starting to go.
Still gonna interfere with it.
Yeah, I mean, those are probably not, they don't tend to last anymore, right, with those bugs that are destroying them.
When they're really close, they tend to choke each other out too.
Yeah, once the shade starts coming in.
Yeah. I've seen that happen to a lot.
And when she was talking about planting them, did the letter specifically say inside the fence, or was she talking about maybe closer to the house? I see there's a space by that truck.
I spoke with her and I said she could plant on her property, but it would have to be within 20 feet of the
Oh,
curb.
so
I
20
did
feet,
explain
right.
that to her.
Well, I get what Vince is saying, that
I
we
don't
should
think,
say,
It doesn't look
you
like you
need
have a
to
lot of
plant
room.
at least one tree to replace the other one, but we recommend 2 trees if there's room.
Okay,
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
because
it's-
I'm
Does
not
that
sure
make
there's room.
sense?
But I'm like George, I'd have to go look at it again.
Yeah,
She does say that she's willing to meet any member on site if you wanted to see in person. I think if you're asking for a larger tree, that seems pretty small space to put 2 larger
Yeah.
trees. I mean, if you were talking.
well, with the
2
wires, you couldn't, or
I
on the
mean,
inside even.
Even, yeah, I mean, even here and here, I mean, eventually they're going to grow depending on how big they are. That's pretty small space.
So if you don't want to put a hornbeam in there, it
Medium
would work,
large one.
Okay.
because that's not a large tree.
Right.
so go with one of the medium sized.
That would be medium, you know.
Small, medium.
Or even like Drew said, something larger and then something
Yeah.
small,
Yeah.
understory, and
Exactly.
getting like an angle.
But
Just
her statement was she didn't want to plant on curbside.
Right.
Well, the question is what did she do that she wasn't supposed to do?
She took a tree down without requesting,
She planted 2, but did she need permission to plant the earlier one?
That was 2000, whatever.
2002,
Two,
20 years ago.
Yeah, see, I mean, in the future, there needs to be a better method to figure out what's happening here, because you don't want to get into a fight with a lawyer that says, well, you let them plant 1 instead of 2. My client plant 2, or, you know.
Right.
you know, it needs to be
Yeah,
consistent.
well, yeah, I mean, the new code, I think, does say is
Right,
trying
the
to
new
get to the
code
point of
with-
if you
I
cut
think-
down a huge tree, you need to replace it with
Right,
something
with more
that's.
than one.
Yeah.
But maybe we can't do that because it's not in the code right now.
I think you can do it, you can make that recommendation, absolutely. I don't see any reason why you cannot. There's,
Agreed. Yeah, it is a recommendation.
okay, well, there's a motion and a second. Do you want to amend that motion in any way?
It would just recommend that in 1 and is either appropriate and then ideally 2. But
Okay,
2 possible.
okay.
Yeah.
So now we have an amended motion. Can I have a second on the amendment? Amanda again, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Okay, I do have one other tree that came in late. Came in today, but I wanted to just bring it, it's a pruning. Made some copies of the email that came through, it's on West Chestnut Street. A copy. That, you can read.
Or
Everything.
Yeah.
You can read the email that came through. They have a professional involved. It sounds like they are going to be doing what they need to do. They're doing aerial inspections, looking for decay. They're going to provide for other options, but right now they want to prune this tree, following ANSI standards. They want to just remove the dead wood. There's some photographs. I know they're in black and white in the email, but I did print color ones on the back, so you can see the tree. I would like to authorize the pruning to go ahead.
I agree.
So it'll be pruning and lightening the canopy, I assume?
Yeah.
Because that makes sense to lighten the canopy depending on what they find
Yeah.
there, so.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Because it's right under the wires and it looks like.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's
it
already
appears this guy is, he knows his stuff. He's looking obviously to not only reduce the canopy, but protect the risk of
Right.
his client. But he's doing the investigation work up front. So it's interesting to see, I mean, it's good to me to see this, type of attitude and approach towards pruning.
Because it pretty much looks like the
It's
top snap. down.
270 West Chestnut Street. Okay, so if we're gonna, I do need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the pruning of the tree at 270 West Chestnut Street.
With standard
With
conditions.
standard conditions.
Okay, so there's a motion. Is there a second? Vince, second. Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so that takes care of that. And then Arbor Day is next on our agenda. Amanda?
So I've been in communication with Andrew Williams and he worked with some of the other teachers at the facility to come up with an idea. I made a copy for all of you that I handed out. This is one, kind of like a sketch, a visual from one of the teachers as the idea for the students to go by to create their own, flair on something similar to this for their Arbor Day project.
Is this at the community center?
Yes.
Where is the tree in this picture?
Kind of, the trees coming up here, you can see the leaves and the branches and
Oh,
around
the
tree is so world. And I thought that it was really cool because like one was darker and one was lighter to add cultural element to it, which I thought was really awesome. And this is the outlook for the students to have their flair,
Nice.
their creative aspect to it. So I did reach out to Andrew about coming, but I think that they're open until about 5 o'clock.
Yeah, this might be a tough time for him.
We bounced back and forth just a couple of times and I didn't get a definitive answer, but obviously he was not able to attend. But I will continue to talk to him and his group and I just need to have a little bit of an idea from us. Would we be able to put some on display here? What time frame would that look like? When would he need to have the project done? Those are the things I need to go back to him with.
Okay, well,
Obviously, it's
does he have like a time frame? Like, does he have like an agenda for an event that he is thinking about at the site?
No,
the
that
day
was
of-
the thing, like how are we going to share this artwork? Like he wanted to have some feedback to make a decision together.
Okay, I mean, the artwork, I can check here for the use of the downstairs hallway. There's active exhibits that go on there routinely, so we can check to see if we can have the
There's a
artwork
couple of
at
things
least
leading
on
up to it.
display here. It would be great to be able to just put it, in the neighborhood center or have it outside, hopefully we're gonna have a nice day to have it outside somehow displayed.
Is there a way, if they don't have the supplies for us to maybe help from here, to maybe get big poster boards to mount them on, to have out on display outside?
I'm sure we can figure something out.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's what I'll continue the
Yeah.
communication on, see, what way we can do the presentation.
yeah.
Maybe
If
tell
he
me
can
if
put
there's-
together like kind of a list of materials that he thinks he's going to need, and you can get that to me, then we'll figure out budget kind of how to deal
One
with
thing
that.
that they do at the Scarecrow event uptown with the kids' artwork is they hang a rope and then they use
Yeah.
clothespins.
And maybe we could do something
it's
like that
really
against the side of the building
Yeah, we
or
could do
something.
it down there for that.
On that one
area.
side where the
That's
tree's gonna
there.
be planted in that
Yeah.
lot.
I mean, depending on, and they usually put theirs like on a construction paper, so it's a little heavier, so we can get
That's what I was
something
talking
like
about.
that, yeah, so. Figuring that out.
Cardstock or.
Yeah. So if he's gonna use like a certain size, are they all gonna maybe use 8.5 by 11 or something? If we figure out size, we can figure it out.
So we know,
That's
we know
easier.
approximately, yeah, we know approximately where the tree is going in. So part of the ceremony, you know, would be the tree planting itself. We'll have to just coordinate if they have, we were looking at a larger tree, we chose the tree, right?
I think there was talk amongst this group about oak trees and other, I don't remember, I'll have to go back to the emails, but there were some larger trees.
Was that the final decision? Was it?
No, I mean, they know that they would left it as an oak tree, but I don't know if there was like a final.
Oak tree would be a little messy.
I thought there was a couple, I thought somebody made a suggestion afterward and it was
Well,
like.
I said
Sycamore.
sycamore, but then you mentioned oak because it's very,
They just.
attracts a lot of
Benefits, yeah, that's amazing.
So I knew everybody kind of decided on that last one that started
All
later.
the acorns and stuff that come off of it, I think would be a little messy.
It's use them in art projects.
What's that?
Oh,
Use them in art
Do
projects.
they use that space for like
Whatever
supper or
activity,
something?
No, it's along the side, it's kind of sloped.
So they're not using it.
It's
as-
also going to come into play when we purchase it and plant it, about what, like,
What's available?
generally, we go to Adams and I mean, there's Adams and, you know, there's other places, but yeah, I think if we can narrow it down to like, maybe not a specific, you know, in case we can't
Right,
get it
because
that
we don't know
day.
that that's going to be
Yeah, so
available,
like
but
in
I
the
think
Oak
there's like
family or
about
in
three in that
George,
email.
do you have any ideas?
That everybody
I
is.
for a lot of different kinds of
Do you have any ideas?
I mean, and we can reserve, probably
Receivable
reserve
space?
something with August.
I would think
reserve.
we want to probably try and do something relatively soon to reserve a
Yeah.
tree so that we're sure, rather than going like 2 weeks before and
Right.
saying, you know, tagging a tree. I think we want to try and get something finalized sooner than later.
So if you wanna go and look at the space or anything, or if anyone.
And you sent the picture around, it was a good picture of the space too.
Yeah, it's a big, it's
a
pretty
big
big area.
rectangular
It's nice
space.
out there.
Do you have a specific oak in mind?
But Ms. George, we're talking about the white
White
oak or like.
Something in the white oak family.
Yeah, but we don't.
They have less diseases at this point, as possible.
Okay. Good point.
They also grow huge.
And you want me to ask the Memorial Tree Fund about how much money they?
Yeah, if you would please,
I think we usually give you 500.
500.
We haven't had our spring meeting yet.
And then we'd have to just set a time because
Actually, I think we already voted on it last year.
what is the 30th?
It's a Friday.
So the majority of the children will be there in the afternoon.
Right.
And the elementaries get out at 3, so we softly talked about this last time. So maybe like a 4 o'clock event,
Yeah, we could do, yeah,
because the
absolutely.
work
We
day's still going on,
absolutely
it's only gonna be about half an hour.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if they want to do like their own program, we want them to make it their program. We don't want to dictate to them what they should or shouldn't be doing.
I meant about the
So-
tree planting itself.
Yeah, it's half an hour, but if they want to sing, if they have, like, the group wants to sing some songs or something, as part of it, I think that's fine.
I just figured the kids were there when the tree was getting planted and being part of that as well.
Absolutely, we want them to be part of that. We want them to throw
So
a shovel full
we'll
of
be
dirt
there,
on it, you know, yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. Yeah,
That's a big tree. It goes 50 to 80 feet high.
And that would be nice, it would shade the little path that's there too.
This is, man,
Yeah,
this
there
is
was-
living some, all these acorns. It's gonna be kind of, I think it'd be kind of.
So maybe look for something native, Kyla, that would grow to that size, that might not have so many falling particulates.
Uh,
trees planted about 25 feet away from the
Yeah,
office.
put
And
it to
in
back.
wheat vaults, for example, those can be pruned back, no problem as they go. You know, if something's growing over the building eventually.
well, I think you're saying about acorns.
It's the acorns and the sides, it's 50 to 80 feet. So it's probably gonna grow over the roof of that building in
Yeah,
time.
sure.
You know, it's not gonna be today. or tomorrow.
Well, I mean, the tree that was there was,
Yeah, it was evergreen.
but it was pretty big.
Big, yeah.
Same scenario, no, I mean, is it infringing on the building?
I don't think, I think it just died eventually. It was probably like, I don't know what it was. Some sort
Where
of
is
spruce
it?
or
Is it
something.
east?
But the
Where's
acorns are
north
better
here?
better than all those
You
needles.
know?
Where is north
South
is,
is that, right? It's just broad, right?
Yeah, north would be kind
Different
of,
tree.
North is south.
well, us or,
would be that direction, right?
So
Basically.
it's going east and west,
Yeah.
so it's going like down the side of the building.
yeah.
It's not really,
I mean, the acorns might not matter if that part of it's like nobody really walks over there. And it's just gonna create like a nice shade for the building.
They've got some sort of walk, I see some asphalt.
Yeah,
walkway.
that's what
it's east and west. It
Like,
won't be
it looks like
creating
it
that
goes
much
to a
shade,
basketball
so it's gonna
court.
be going
Yeah.
over it. It's not gonna be doing much for shade because east to west, the
Yeah.
sun's going over it, kind of, you know. So my question was more like, you know, do they ever want to put solar on the building or something like that, you know? That becomes an issue sometimes. But that would be a problem, really. There's a way trees there anyway,
Yeah, exactly. I think it's gonna cause the other ones.
winter, that is.
I feel for one, there is not a strict close that we can actually plant this kind of trees.
Well, we need to start creating like a basic program. So Andrew wants to work on that with the teachers. We can, I mean, we have programs from prior years. We can share if that's what he's looking for.
You might
I don't know
email
how
one
much
to me.
time he needs, you know, like how much time he's thinking in terms of this program lasting. I mean, they don't last, you know, for an hour or so. We typically, you know, half an hour, 45 minutes with little kids.
Why don't you email me an example program and I'll actually see if sometime, this week's already really started, so sometime next week or the week after, I can actually go over there because I'll be back in town when that program is going on and maybe meet with them for a little bit. Okay, and talk about it. I think it might be easier than just going back and forth with the email if we just get together and brainstorm for 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep,
so I think that's a good avenue to take.
okay. George, are you gonna be available from DEC that day? Or do you don't know? Okay, all right. Well,
You can find
because
out.
sometimes we make that a part of the program if the DEC is present,
Well, when would
so.
you need to know by?
I mean, the programs can get printed up relatively, you know, quickly right in the building here. We don't, unless we want to do something fancy with them.
And is the DEC going to do any educational programming for Arbor Day this year?
Well, you don't do much more than just be there and planting a tree and talk about it, kind of, yeah.
I know they had some materials we handed out, like bookmarks and stuff like that.
yeah, George usually gives us posters and bookmarks if they have them.
Oh, well, that I can
Yeah.
always, yeah. Well, there's only gonna be posters this year.
If you can find out how many kids are in the program,
I believe
Stand
that I
there.
reported it was about 25 in elementary and 25 in the middle.
Okay.
So
it might be nice
approximately
to
50.
think about giving them little saplings or something, but I don't know that they all have a place to put them, you know, plant them on their own.
The school can want to do those directly, why do you want to? Necessary.
Yeah, well, we talked about that, remember, with the grant application, but I don't know if that would be
Yeah,
awarded by,
I was talking
and I'm
about
not sure with the speakers. Yeah.
all right, so we'll mail you a sample program that you can share with Andrew,
Okay.
and start putting that end of things together. We're looking at a white oak then, possibly. And Tubby, you'll find out about the Memorial
I
Tree
was
Fund
looking to see if I could find an email that
Okay.
had that information.
to confirm that. It'll be, like we said, probably a late afternoon event, so hopefully commission members can attend and participate, and CAC members are welcome too. We'll try and button down the mayor, we'll do the standard proclamation, for Arbor Day.
That's why I thought 4 was good, because it's still
Yeah,
working time.
and if like Andrew wants, like I said, to do other like small, like the elementary kids want to sing a couple songs,
I have
or
no
the middle school might want to do a couple poems, I don't know. Whatever they want to do, if they can do a little skit if they want, if they want to be creative, so that would be fine. What is the theme this year for Arbor Day? Okay,
I haven't seen it.
yeah, I haven't seen
I
anything.
There's on the websites out there.
Okay,
Very-
all right,
And then, wait, and what is the school? I'm sorry.
it's not school, it's the Rondout Neighborhood Center.
Rondout
It's a
Neighborhood Center.
city facility that does after-school programming.
Okay. So I can pass this on to.
Okay. Anything else, Amanda, on that? That you can think of?
And I guess just, would they prefer to have the artwork displayed here, or would they prefer it at the neighborhood center? Because maybe, like, if
We
they're,
were just looking to see what was mutually
Okay.
decided upon.
because I
It was
think
very
we could do
good discussion.
either way, but like, if they want their parents to see it there when they pick them
Yeah.
up, or if they want it up here, like, I don't know what's.
I mean, maybe it could be there for the event and then come over here for the first 2 weeks of May
Okay,
or something like that. Because I think that the kids would be happy to know that their artwork was at City Hall. I think that's fun,
Yeah.
For a little bit, it's like, ooh, that's where my artwork's with the mayor. Like, I think that's cool.
Okay. So moving along, the tree ordinance. Just before we do that, just the recap on the zoning. I know we did the workshop, and Kyla and I went through all of the notes and the comments from the commission with Bartek a couple days after we had that. I don't know if the commission members had anything further that they wanted us to pass along on the proposed zoning code.
And that's separate from the tree ordinance, right?
Yes, that is the new zoning code. So we looked at the street, primarily the streetscape and the open space requirements. We
Right,
went
which we
through
looked
all
at
of
last
that.
time.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I think like the advisory, when new projects comes in and the advisory adds.
We mentioned that, yeah. We mentioned, like we said, we went through, I pointed my comments and then Kyla sat with me too. And we went through everything with Bartek and he took all of the notes, so.
Because I think it's
everything-
important. to
Yeah,
know
I
it's,
just wanted to make sure there was nothing beyond what we discussed that night that the commission wanted to address. I mean, Vince is on the planning board, so we're also doing a more formal referral comment from the planning board, so we could fold something into that if there's something really critical that you wanted addressed. But I think for the most part, the tree commission seemed happy with the sections that you reviewed. Okay, all right, good. So jumping back then to the tree ordinance, it's almost 6 o'clock. I don't know if we'll have time to get through. I did have some comments, more comment on it. The one thing I definitely note is that we need to format it to follow the city code format. We can't have like the bullets like they are. They'll have to be formatted in there. And I was just gonna do some comparisons. We definitely need to update the sketches. So I was going to ask Karine, because you are the professional of the group, if you might be willing to take these and do more. These were just hand-drawn sketches at the time. if you could work on getting those, looking a little bit more professional.
And bigger, so you could see.
Yeah, well, I think if they're clear, yeah, in reproduction, they kind of lose.
Yeah.
You
They're
planning on
big
rebranding them, or are you gonna, there's a lot of sketches like that out there.
Yeah, I think I have it done.
You can just
Yeah,
take it
yeah,
out somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I don't, I mean, obviously, you know, illustrations are probably the best way to get the message across. I don't know if there's any other illustrations that we want to think about throwing into the, you know what I'm saying? Right now, there are just the samples that are there. Is there another portion of this that you feel an illustration would do a good job in showing what the actual text is trying to describe?
How about where we talk about large, medium, and small trees? Could we put like an illustration of a large, medium, small, and maybe where a wire normally would go? Like a electric wire? I mean, to me, that'd be,
I know
That seems to be an
in the
issue that we're
Arbor Day,
constantly
yeah, in the Arbor
dealing
Day
with.
bulletins, that we get, there's a lot of stuff like that. We might be
See
able
the
to
tree with like
pull.
the watermark above it where it kind of like could go to.
but I mean, that, to me, that would be really helpful.
Mhm.
Because then people can look at it, oh, this is what's, yeah, they see it right away. This
So,
is
so
what's
people identify visually what a small tree mature height is, what a medium tree mature height, and even, I think, describing trees. Some trees, people don't understand that, a cone-shaped canopy or a round canopy, or they don't get that. Or
Or you
they
get
need
it-
the list,
yeah.
and that's not identified there, so things like that might be. I don't know if you have anything in stock, kind
I should
of,
check.
but
Yeah.
if you do, maybe that was another suggestion I had.
Check it. And I had suggested we rewrite the purpose. There are 2 paragraphs, which I found very repetitive. And I actually did rewrite something, but I didn't like send it out to everyone,
Okay,
but I can do that now.
that would be great. There's some things in here, that I saw, this is the right copy, right? Yeah.
I think on the Cornell website, they have descriptions of small, large, and medium trees, and they have pictorials along with that, and plantings.
Yeah, like we say in,
So maybe that's where I've seen it.
I mean, we say in here, provide a long-range plan every 5 years for the city relating to the street trees and shrubs. I think it's a great idea. Is that something we can, I mean, we're committing to a 5-year
Review.
project. I mean, every 5 years. So do we want to commit, do we want to put an absolute time frame? That's, my fear is that when you start putting that in code, it becomes an obligation. And is this commission, as it stands now, willing to, that's work. It means doing work, it doesn't mean sitting around.
Maintaining and updating.
Yeah, I mean, it's a commitment, and I think, while it's great, it says provide a long-range plan every 5 years for the city relating to street trees and shrubs. So that's a commitment. And I just want people to understand that it's great to put it in the code, but once you codify it, it becomes an absolute, you're obligating yourselves.
What if it said like where, like when needed, but, not to exceed 10 years?
The state does this all the time. It says 5 years, then 20 years later, it's still.
Yeah, I know, but then somebody calls you on it, and then it's like, look, you should be doing this, if you're not doing this, you're not doing your job, and then you get crucified, and I
I mean,
don't feel like putting myself in that
you
position.
used it to 10 years.
I don't give people
Sorry,
results.
don't do it at all.
We're
It comes down to all.
Yeah.
They increased it to 10 years, now it takes them 20. So one of the things that you might say is instead of saying long-range plan, you might say an outline or a setting of goals or something, and make it less than a plan.
Well, I mean,
Less than a huge thing, you know what I mean? But you want to have something that actually comes out, even if it's a 1-pager, you know?
Do we have a long-range plan right now? Is that what is?
You got an inventory and a.
You have
We have an inventory and we have these
management
codes.
plan, But it doesn't really, that's not a plan, that really is.
No.
And I guess the reason I say that is if there was an existing plan, you could say you would review and update the plan.
It's not,
You know, have we met the goals that we wanted to in the previous plan? If we don't have a plan, then.
I was thinking more goals and an outline of direction and stuff and not say plan, you know?
Yeah.
Like you're not crossing your Ts, dotting your Is on every inch of the, city,
But I feel like with midtown and like, like environmental justice and like, like climate change, I think midtown was kind of like the focus, So I feel like there's some kind of plans about kind of viewing the zoning to kind of make sure the trees are like. It's kind of like an ongoing kind of mission and plan wise about like, having some goals.
Right,
And so maybe this is like a question for phrasing it and addressing it.
okay, well, everybody can just think about that line there, I mean, that
Which
was one
section
line.
is that?
Huh?
What section are you?
Under the B,
It's in 373-5, Tree Commission Creation Internal Office section.
because you need something that sets goals.
Commission duties, okay.
More than the totally nebulous one, because then nothing gets done.
Okay,
And then we don't want that.
Right.
so the long range plan can also include basically like historian project, right? Because I think part of it is we actually review the, the
Right.
project itself.
Right. Maybe it's,
Well, I'm
yeah,
just looking at section 373-6, which talks about master street plan program, which is kind of the same type thing, right? This doesn't specify a time frame.
right, that, and then, see, that says we have the authority to formulate and adopt.
So that's the reference.
So maybe that's, we just leave that section in and take that other line out. Because you're formulating and adopting, and then you could add into that section there, maybe, and will. Now, it does say the tree commission shall recommend yearly planting targets. It's somewhat covered under that section, Kyle's right. Anyway. Any other thoughts on this before we?
We want to remove the president from the last one. And the fine itself, I thought are we going to base on the size of the tree? Because the problem about that is like we might encounter some pushback or people are going to argue, it's just like, it's just not going to be fairly treated, like some people will. Because even the trees down and like sometimes they remove the trunk itself.
Right.
And it's going to be difficult and to determine the fine. And sometimes if it's too high and like, it just.
Oh, for the fine?
Yeah, the fine, we have to remove the imprisonment for term not exceeding 15 days or both. But I think like, we talk about, so we mentioned about like the fine should be based on the size of the tree being removed. That might be.
Right,
We
my
can
notes
increase
that I have from last time were that we talked about potentially increasing the
Yeah.
fee. That we talked about options, such as considering the diameter of the DBH and planting an equitable number of trees. We talked about maybe, having an age size table and having the various, fees range from that. I mean, those were the options I had written down last time, and that we never really had any more discussion on that, what we feel it should be.
I think the age size table would be difficult to.
It's gonna be.
What?
It's always the same.
You know what, that sometimes the homeowners are forget about, they don't even know like how long, how old is the tree, so.
Right,
When it's first cut, you'd be able to count the rings.
It's more like, I mean, it's a small level.
Did you check what Mount Vernon and some of these others that have done it more recently?
Yeah.
That don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, a base fee, and then I think a fee and a replanting should be, they should work hand in hand, they should
I
be
agree.
together, that's my thought. And I see no reason why not to go with the DBH. The issue is if you have a tree that's cut down like we did today, prior, you don't know what the DBH was, you have the stump left, you can use that. And again, like so say that was a 10-inch DBH, right? So she's got to plant an equitable number of trees, so she plant 5 2-inch trees, she can't do that right there. We saw that from just looking at her site.
Right.
So they have to be planted elsewhere. And then do we try and come up with location? It gets complicated and it can get extremely complicated, but I mean, I think that's a fair way to do it.
Right, and I think it's going to be case per case anyway, because like we've seen today, is it possibility of 2 or not? I think we should kind of recommend the 2, and if not 1, just like maybe go the
Right.
other way, and like the same way, like with some kind of like, equivalence, and after case per case, if the person cannot afford it, of course, there's
Or
a.
payment in lieu of.
Yeah,
And yeah, if it doesn't work, sometimes this just can't be done because it's a 15-inch tree or 20. In some cities, what they do is they say, plant an equivalent number of trees that at maturity will be the same, at least canopy cover, which means don't replace an oak that's been cut with a bush,
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
The payment in lieu of is interesting.
Yeah.
Because we,
Establishing a fund, no, I don't know, I have to talk to,
That's actually better, probably, because most people that cut down their tree don't want another one.
yeah,
And I know we don't want them to, you want the tree, but if they're going to not then take care of the tree, I mean, in Kingston, we put that responsibility on the property owner, so if they really don't want it, and then they're not going to take care of it,
right,
sort of you don't want to see them plant something and then have it be dead or intentionally dead.
but I think maybe like the options of that recommend this,
Yeah.
and if not, then there is a fund that can be allocated for maintenance to some point.
Sue, you've established kind of like the amount of money that they needed to, if they weren't going to plant a tree, you gave them an option to give you, I don't know, I forgot what it was, 250 or something like that.
well, I mean,
That's in the code now.
yeah, that 250 is in the code right now, is just a fine, but,
I don't think that's enough to replace it.
it's not. To purchase and to install a 2-inch, no, and we don't have in-house forces to, do a large scale tree planting. We would have to probably bid something like that out. And we would bid out, what's our bid now at per tree?
Well, right now, it's very high.
Yeah,
I mean, between $800 and $900 for one tree, 1 2-inch tree.
But you could leave it open, you could some places keep it open. Where they basically say that can change,
Right.
because over time it will change because of inflation and everything else. So in 5, 10 years, the whole thing is obsolete anyway.
So not put a specific fine, but put the fine will be based on current
You
cost
could
of
say a
repairing
minimum,
the trees.
so you could say a minimum now and an equivalent to do the same work in the future. Or something, I forget what the wording is that they use. No, they do.
So you know that there are places that do that? Can you find that and send it to us?
I mean, it does say not to exceed, so you could say the cost of the tree not to exceed $1,000 or something.
Yeah.
Or not to.
Then how do you set, I mean, you have to have some kind of basis for setting a fee, so I'd rather just see a penalty of
Yeah, I
a
mean, if
flat
they are,
fee
if
and
they,
then, another, and in addition to another option.
if they are required to replace the tree, that's basically, and then any additional fee would go towards future planting, doesn't have to necessarily cover the cost of that one tree.
Right,
Pooled to plant,
yeah,
so it could be any dollar amount, I guess.
right.
Or maybe usually say of a voluntary donation to the Memorial Tree Fund or.
I don't know if we can do that, though.
Yeah, I don't know that we can codify that.
Yeah, that would be.
Right.
It can be a little awkward, yeah. All right, so those are some things that need to get ironed out, I think.
You say voluntary donation or involuntary?
Volunteer.
That's why I said voluntary.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
Can I just bring something up from what I saw? I saw the first tree, that removal was along Albany Avenue. Question I had is, and you guys probably done this. When you were looking at the code, I mean, if somebody start to cross-reference the fact, what is Albany Avenue, possibly going to start look like in the future? So, what are you talking about? Is that 4-foot space actually 10 years down the line, gonna be a 5-foot space, or is it gonna disappear? Because a lot of stuff is wasted that way, You plant
So in other
the
words,
trees and
put
then
a
it
tree
goes
and
out.
then you move it because the street's gonna change.
Right. Or maybe you could have planted that tree because there's gonna be a lot more space there.
Mhm.
Or somebody wanted to take out, let's say this one here, I noticed, that, the issue is not what's at the base, but it is lifting the sidewalk at the base. So the question is what's gonna happen in the street in the future, is that an issue? I mean, that tree may not be great to be around 20 years from now, but what if?
We talked a little about that too at the planning board. What if, how is the streetscape gonna change over time? Like, if we make decisions today, what's gonna happen 10, 15 years from now? I mean, that's feasible to happen even with trees. The whole demographics of the street may not be the same as it is today. So I think the idea, Sue's idea, creating some sort of penalty for not planting is a good idea. Put the onus back on the homeowner. But then the idea of talking about this one on Albany Avenue, telling them that they need to plant 2 for 1, I think that's a little stiff, but if it flies, it flies.
And perhaps if there's an area that's going to be rebuilt, like 2 areas that you guys have dealt with recently, that could be money in lieu of, and then it could be used for
We
planting.
know that Albany Avenue is gonna change over time. We know that's gonna be the case.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of streets
A
are
lot
going
of
to change,
streets, yeah.
are going to be changing, and, I mean, it is.
It is what it is, right?
The whole thing
Yeah,
of Franklin and Henry.
that's growing, that's growth, that's
That's growth.
normal.
Yeah.
I mean, Washington Avenue doesn't look the same way it looked 50 years ago,
No.
and
10 years.
10 years ago.
10 years ago,
The problem right now is a lot of the streets do look like they looked 100 years ago. They need to change.
I think Manor Avenue is one street that looks somewhat preserved than how it may have looked 20, 30 years ago.
Mhm.
And already, with that ice storm, I think 2 large trees came down there, and planted some small trees. But it's changing already.
Well, yeah, with all these storms, so much is going on.
I love the weather.
Also, the point is, you've got plenty of streets that are basically one-way streets in places that somebody here might be thinking about, like, it's a one-way street, and there's parking on both sides, and there's still enough room to get two-way street cars up and down it, you don't need that extra width.
Right.
So that can be used then to make a decent street, or make a pedestrian-friendly street.
They tried some of that with Roebuck. They kind of shrunk the street a little bit.
You shrunk the trees too.
The sycamores they cut down, that was a different issue.
Could that have been preserved?
All right,
I just wanted to bring up for the tree planting, I emailed George and Kareem, but I didn't email the rest of you. One of the species that we chose from last fall that we had reserved were the tulip trees, the smaller tulip trees. I don't know if something happened to those over the winter or if they're just, for whatever reason, there was only 3, but they're not available. And they said what was available was a some sort of London plane.
Yeah, X something, like exclamation or
Exclamation, yeah. Exclamation London plane, which isn't native to my knowledge, which is commission has been a proponent of. I'm not sure if you feel strongly about not having that type. George, you sort of thought it was a similar size,
I don't know if
Maybe.
it's similar size, if you were saying that the other one
it's a
was
smaller one.
smaller, this is not smaller.
So this is, right, true, would be the equivalent of a regular.
56 is a regular.
So I can ask them whether there's any other option instead of that one, or if that's our only, I mean, it was only 3 out of 21, but I just wanted to put that out there. I can let you know if there's other option.
Do we need to like discuss or address anything that Lynn was saying? I mean, I'm curious, what happened to all those trees? Because we only voted on that one tree, which was dealing with, we said, we were told it had to come down because of the
I believe
handicap
that
accessibility.
engineering brought the plans for Franklin Street to us
Yes.
a long time ago. They were in front of the tree commission. And I think Henry Street came as well.
But she's saying there were trees that they promised to keep and then they didn't keep, so I don't
Well, I'll
recall
follow, I mean,
anything.
I do have a note to talk to engineering about Henry Street because
She said there were
she
8
said that they're supposed to
trees.
keep
Right.
a few trees, so we will make, I mean, the plans, when we look at them, they say tree to remain, so
Yeah, I mean, I
have
do
to take
remember
them at their
looking at
word.
plans and they said, oh, yeah, we're gonna keep these, and she's saying, oh, they all got cut down. Now, does she really mean they all got cut down?
Well, I don't know, you know, I mean, I can't,
I don't go down that street that often, I don't live in Kingston.
Yeah.
Those plans that, I don't remember if it was Franklin or Henry or both, and I was looking at them and stuff, and none of that was clear at all as to what's happening. That was a very poor I'm sorry, I don't mean to, but it was very poor presentation at best. I went back and looked at their photos, tried to figure it out, I couldn't use the photos that were online and, you know, in the Kingston files because they were too fuzzy. You couldn't tell what was gonna happen.
I know the tree on the wall in Franklin.
And she's saying, well, no sidewalk work has been done. Well, we
Well,
approved it.
I think they said they weren't gonna start until the spring,
yeah,
but the guy, some guy from, I don't know if it's DPW
Engineering, right,
told
they
me
were from engineering, it was
Yes,
Keith
presentation.
Phillips was
about the
presenting.
sidewalk heave and the
Yep.
fact that they wanted to put a mediating approved,
And I thought it had something to do with the roots were too close and they felt that
yes.
they would kill the tree anyway.
All the pipes down there, it's over 100 years old, so they talked about the
Because that the requirements are that it has to be a certain width and the tree was too close. That
So I
was
thought he,
my
I thought
understanding.
he did a good job of explaining it. I understood it back then, but
I mean, we can look in the code, I mean, I know in the zoning code, there is provisions for making efforts to protect and preserve mature trees. It is in the code.
Right,
So you can look at, I mean, you can review that, and if you want to make more comment on that, that's one thing. Or we can also look at, beefing up maybe the code that the tree commission deals with separately from the zoning code. And putting something in there.
I think yeah, like a collaboration with the engineering and other consultant firm coming and just like, because sometimes it comes, to the tree commission at the end and they present, with all the work that have been done. And they come and they say, this has to go because we have designed it this way.
Right, well, there is
So-
provision in the drafted new code for projects like that to come to both us and to CAC. That's in there.
I mean, that's
That's
the
been
same thing,
added
but
in.
I feel like to avoid this kind of.
Complete streets, not the CAC, the complete streets.
Complete streets, sorry, right.
Do they have any let's say, of course, like during construction, if they found something, they have to modify the plan a little bit?
Sure.
Such as removing the tree,
I
what's
think
the,
what would be helpful is for the commission to become familiar with what alternative measures there are out there. And that was something that, Sarah Wink did send that one email, and it did have some alternatives. So I think that's something maybe the commission should maybe look at focusing on and thinking about, educating ourselves on what options are out there, so that when we do get confronted with situations like this, we can say, here's an option for you to think about, consider, where it's worked in other communities. And that's, maybe George has some suggestions as well, but I think that's important for us to start looking into and getting documentation and information on.
Well, that's it, when they come to me, I'm not a city planner, I'm not a landscape architect.
Well, but that's why,
And I have to
mean,
assume that the landscape architect doing the project has some knowledge.
Right, but as a
I don't know
commissioner,
where they
I think as a commissioner, you want to also just educate yourself as to what other options are available. And I mean, so it's going online, looking, seeing, looking at other people submitting suggestions, looking at it, considering it, saying maybe that's something, okay, keep that in your head, this is, in your file box. And so when a situation arises, you can say, hey, we have this as maybe an option. This would work here, think about that.
The other thing that I was thinking is just the cost. I realize taking down a tree has its costs, but who are you asking to do something like somebody said one where you had like a little pathway going around the tree. That's quite a big job, especially if you're gonna use bluestone. We just bought some bluestone. It's unbelievably
And it
expensive.
can add
Yeah,
to
it
the
is.
cost of a project a lot, and you get a lot of pushback right away.
And if it's for a project or for a homeowner, asking a homeowner not to take down a tree and to do an option, that could get really
Which
expensive.
is one reason why, I'm all for, and I work with a lot of groups in the last decade. And I'm very happy if they want to be educated and all that, but I've never known any of them that could stand up to the pressure
Of the
of
engineers.
when the engineer shows up and when the homeowner shows up and says, well, it's gonna be way too expensive, and then he gets political and just blows the hell out of the water. And none of them have a professional there that is a forester, but has an engineering background, or a landscaper that has an engineering background, that can be the backup to them, because they need that backup, because you don't have that. That's not your full-time job. It's just not, it hasn't worked anywhere. It collapses, which is why I keep pushing now for the hiring of the urban foresters and stuff.
Right, so that we have somebody who can be involved on.
Right. By the way, the state has moved back the grant till April 6th, the end of April, Arbor Day, now another month. We just moved it back. That you guys could, if you were interested, apply under maintenance or under, some categories for an urban forester. Under contract and stuff. But the point is that I'm pushing that over and over. I've watched 80 different municipalities all failing with all of our money because they don't have any long-term backup, so there's no long-term plan, and whatever is put in doesn't last. I'm sorry, that sounds extremely depressing, but
Kingston, DPW, they do have two people identified to be arborists.
Correct.
And when they get on board, I think that's the biggest value add that we could have.
Right, and it's a matter of also getting them to come to these commission meetings.
Right.
I mean, they should really, we're paying out of our budget for them to get educated and certified. They should be present at these meetings, and I've had that discussion as well, so.
You have to have backup from them, and that's great, that's fantastic. But what you need in addition to that is somebody that's gonna take these plans and work with the rest of the DPW, like everybody, and say, these are areas that, work with the trees that fit or don't fit in that area, analyze what I mentioned here with like, what's that street gonna look like and stuff, give you advice as to, that person that cut down the tree, should you replace it there or not? It goes beyond that, and it creates a plan. It creates a plan, a direction. It says these areas of the city are, let's say, prone to, now this big thing is extreme heat. I'm one of the advisory things up in Albany. That stuff gets complicated. It goes like, east, west, where are the trees? What are the temperatures? What are the, what are you working with? That, how wide is the street? That all comes into it. And that, so one needs more of an overview of the entire city, some more of a direction.
Is that where you're talking about the urban forester being involved in early upfront, but we don't have any.
Well, yeah. Because that's gonna decide where you're gonna plant, let's say, the trees. Where do you wanna plant those if you get money in lieu of? Where are the most important places to put those trees? And then you have to be able to bring it up,
But we do have a lot of, when we were, before we got these, we subcontracted someone to define the trees and we looked up where the tree wells were. I mean, I rode down several streets in Midtown, and there's a lot of empty tree wells that I think would be ideal for those kinds of things, to say, these are where these, if we get money allocated from fines or whatever, these would be ideal spots to replant, because there were trees there.
But the problem with that is if that was that plan that the state paid for, was that they just went out and said, well, this is where a tree used to be, so that square here, that's fine. Not. Because how do you know that there isn't anything underneath there?
Well, that's just it. They don't identify if there's a stump underneath there or if the tree might have been taken down because there's a utility
There's a
connection.
gas,
as I
there's a
said.
utility thing there.
I mean, you don't know that.
But this person needs to be able to work. But a person that's hired, a professional in that, can start to work slowly, the best you can, whatever. I know there's all sorts of issues in each city, in each town, where you start to get that information as to, if I have 100 spots on Newburgh's Broadway, how many of those spots can you actually plant up? We ended up, they said they were gonna plant 50 spots, and in the end, they canceled all except for 7, and that took 2 years of arguing.
Wow.
And because nobody checks it out. Because there's no focus, there's nobody saying, this is the project, this little area is key, and in the future, this is where we get the bang for the buck for heat, for energy, for climate, for everything, and then work with the rest of the, city, the mayor, everybody, as part of the picture. But the bottom line is, I look at demonstration areas as the most important thing you can do. Take a couple of blocks, take some key blocks and show what you can do with it, for starters, and how different it'll look, and stuff, and that, so.
Do you think it's valuable to even have kind of like joint meeting for all the commission, like not only tree commission, right? Because it's like, I think planning board, there's like engineering, and at least sometimes they have to hear what, the difficulty we are having, and, there's some, like today we have a complaint from the community, or, at least like, and like sometimes like, it seems like to me, the different, of course, like, different commission meet separately, but at the same time, it is, I think commissions should have some way to communicate with each other to understand the need or like the difficulty we are facing. So at least when they are doing, evaluate some plan or, doing some work, they have to, like for this case, we have residents, complain about like the tree being removed and, without telling the residents and so that's kind of issue, right? And so, but I think the one thing like, the community's voice is always welcome, but at the same time, it's like, I kind of feel like it is really something, a limitation for our ability, right? Because I think the biggest question is like, okay, so when the project's done, how do we know it's done according to the plan or how anything change and did it get approved? Because like sometimes even when we, it's really out of our hand. So that is something like, I think it's really out of our, either we want to help, but at the same time, it's like, how can we help in this situation? Right?
That role in certain places, in various cities, is the Conservation Advisory Council. If it's functioning properly, big if, and that, because they coordinate their advisory to the planning board, but they usually also have a tree commission piece, and they're supposed to communicate. If they do.
I
But
think
that's-
Kingston is a good, my opinion is they're very solid. And they're very much involved.
The conservation advisory. Yeah,
So you
they
have-
have a lot of homework to do.
You need that communication, because if the communication breaks down, it doesn't help.
But I do know that the mayor was on top of that too. I mean, in particular with the Franklin Street project, he sent out little blurbs and we did including. I mean, so in terms of residents in the neighborhood, I think there were.
All right, just one minute, before Evan leaves, because then we're gonna be down. There was a, email that I sent out about a forum that's happening, Tree City Forum. And it's happening in person in Poughkeepsie on March 16th. We can send up to 2, people from the commission. I don't know if any commission members are interested in going, but if you are, let me know. I had sent that out,
was a
back
little
in
while ago.
January 27th. So if you're interested in going to that on the 16th, please let me know so
So
we can
that's a
get you
Thursday?
registered.
Thursday.
It's a Thursday, March 16th. Yeah.
Lunch.
I think it would be really interesting, but I just don't know what's happening on 16th.
Huh?
I think it would be interesting to go, but right now my March is very up in the air.
Okay,
as to when
well, I'm
gonna
saying if
be
you want to
there or
go,
not.
I mean, there's two free invitations to the city. So I would like, if commission members want to go, this is a good opportunity to, to go and to learn and to network with other, Tree City communities if you want. I mean, this is something I would think
Any
Would be-
deadline, like anybody needs to let you know, I mean, I couldn't go the Thursday, so, but like any deadline, like latest day to let you know, like, one or two of us want to go.
Yeah, it's 9:30 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon.
What's the deadline? He's saying, what's the deadline?
I don't know that they gave me a deadline to submit. I don't see a deadline in there, but,
You told Tim he can have a free lunch. Go ahead.
I would like to go, but I have a feeling that is a week we are gonna be away.
okay, well, let me know. I mean, again, it's open. I mean, the first 2 people that want to go are the ones that are going to get it. I cannot go.
It's at Vassar, isn't it?
Huh?
Is it at Vassar?
It's at Vassar, yeah. so it's not, I mean, it's fair, I call that local,
Yeah,
you know,
Poughkeepsie is our oldest tree city and that. And depending on if I speak with you because I approved it, they're not eligible this year.
well, the Vassar campus used
After
to be,
45 years.
the Vassar campus used to be considered, I don't know, campus arboretum. or something.
Vassar and
But
Vassar.
then they almost lost it because this tree, they have a sycamore tree there's this branch
Did the
that
huge
hangs,
one, yeah.
it's all held up by this wire.
Vassar is a tree campus. That's what
And it
I mean.
still is.
They have two tree
So
campuses. Yeah, they're designated in this area.
Huh? I have a question.
yeah,
Evan, if you could go.
Evan, you have to go.
Okay.
Right, that's all I wanted, I'm sorry.
One of these extra ones of these shickel ones, if anybody wants, nice pictures of trees, gives you an idea what different trees are.
I just saw like the plan list for the project, the yes stadium.
Okay.
And then like all the planting plan, I just like, so I saw it and I saw like in some of it, there's like some maples. And I know we are trying to get away from this, and I mean, they're a beautiful selection of trees, like amazing, it's gorgeous, must be like they're all native, and that's a oaks and like amazing stuff, but except for like the maples, so I just, and also in, looking the shrubs, there is like some non-native shrubs that are actually not, very beneficial shrub that could be replaced by like, almost the same size and like the same species, but like the kind of like native version that could be, like a substitute. So I kind of like looked at it and proposed, like some substitution. And I wanted to tell them like, because of the, tree repertory and the canopy, of Kingston, it would be better to stay away from the maple. But before I send it, I wanted to have everybody's concerned about this. I'm not sure, I can enter it in the Engage Kingston, related to the project. And
That was Jack Schoonmaker is on the Deep Stadium project. So that's what you're talking about specifically, right?
Yeah,
He is the project manager.
yeah, I think I saw this on the Engage Kingston.
He would be the one that you want to reach out to and speak to.
So you just wanna know if the group agrees with
Yeah,
your-
exactly. I don't want to
But
do this.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not sure what the protocol is, because I just happened to see the list and I want to make sure like, I don't want to do this, on the side or whatever.
Yeah, he's just now, I think, reviewing a lot of the specs. But are you on the project advisory committee for that?
No.
Okay,
I didn't see a landscape, I haven't seen really.
I have not
detailed
seen-
plans for that,
yeah.
so, but I'm sure the group, well, I don't know, the group usually generally agrees with native species over non-native.
Yeah, it's like just like three,
not using
like
maple.
two substitution, and also like it was interesting because there's only one perennial in the project. Like,
What are the rest, annuals?
no, there's one also just like shrubs
Oh,
and
shrub.
trees, few grasses, and like the choice was like to change the grass, like kind of native from a non-native, and also like and I think there's black eye Susans, I think.
yeah,
That's the only one, but whatever. I mean, all the trees are like quite gorgeous selection, but I feel like just like tweaking some of them. So I just wanted to send it, and I was wanting to send it, and I was like, I don't see them. I was going today, I was like, I'm not sure what, if it's like the right way to do it, or like, I don't know. Because I mean, that's what I was thinking, like if we can have like this and review it, as like a commission.
yeah,
together.
I mean, we could probably ask Jack to, I don't know how far they are in,
Yeah.
the plans, now would be the time for
Yeah, I mean, I
the
think,
commission to put any input into the plans before they go beyond a certain point. And so I think,
I think they're planning to go out to bid, so I think if you do have comments,
yeah,
I haven't seen them, but I know the time frame is,
It's very short.
right.
yeah,
Where's it, is it stadium?
deep stadium.
Stadium.
Yeah, it's gonna be closed for like 2 years or something.
I
Yeah.
know that we're gonna.
Okay, so I'm just gonna.
Yeah, the pool will be done in the summer.
Yeah, it's time sensitive.
So, yeah,
And so I thought if I mean, about like the tree repertory, like who's in charge of like every time new trees are planted and stuff, like is there an update so that like how is this, I forgot what is the system like, like once there is like a new tree planted in Kingston, like does somebody actually enter the information into like?
Wow. We don't want to talk too much about this because George is here. So it's a requirement of the DEC grant system. But actually, right now, so we, I mean, generally with our tree planting projects, I have lists.
Right.
Going into the Arbor Pro software, I don't generally do that. But we have an intern that is going to be taking all the information that I have and that the street tree planting projects from the engineering office, we're putting all of that together. And this person is going to work on that for the spring semester, updating the tree inventory with at least the tree plantings that we've done as a group and the city's projects. The thing that doesn't get included in that, or at least isn't right now, are these, when somebody applies to remove a tree and then we don't know when they actually do it, that's more difficult to track because we don't generally do follow-up inspections unless something comes up where we have to. But for the planting projects and the streetscape projects, those are all going to be updated. And then on the other ones that we know, that have come up.
Because I see like,
Isn't there a way to incorporate in the application for homeowner?
Send us
To
something
report
when it's
back
done.
with,
Yes.
A lot of times when I do the letters, I ask them to let us know when the work is
They don't do
complete, but again, it's tracking.
Taking notes.
Yeah.
Just tracking feedback.
It just means your inventory's out of date.
A little bit, all right, but we're working on
A
it.
little
and,
bit.
but I was thinking about the DS project because it seems like so many trees, and I was thinking about this, about like all this list of trees.
For
and
the,
stuff.
for the deep stadium project.
Yeah.
See, things like that where we have actual plans
Yeah.
that are engineer plans with landscaping plans, I mean, those things will be updated. It's the
The one-to-one.
private property owner
Right.
removal planting situation that is not as,
we know they're removing a tree, so does that get taken out of the inventory? If a tree gets removed, like at 26 Westchester Street, we know
Right.
the tree's gonna be removed.
but we don't know that it's actually
I
removed.
see.
It's not.
That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a spreadsheet basically of people that have applied for a tree removal, so, if we ever were to go out and
It's just time.
checked those.
Right, somebody.
Yeah, I mean,
around
it could
the
be its
city.
own department of,
But a lot of those people also are saying they're gonna plant a tree.
right.
Yes,
So how do you know that they did that? What?
We don't.
Okay. Never mind, never mind.
because we're not gonna, no, or giving them a date, we must take it down by date X and you must plant it.
I mean, aside from like anecdotal, like, we see and we drive around and we, in our daily lives, but yeah, I mean, we're not always.
I mean, but it was a mountain of error, we're just trying like,
Yes.
this big project.
But to answer, yes.
Yeah. so
The,
that-
the broad strokes are being updated.
Is
Yeah.
that part of the ordinance?
Well, that's what I'm wondering, maybe do we have to add something to the ordinance saying, you have to let us know, and if you don't, let
Well,
us
you know,
know,
I
we're
should
gonna
say
charge
that,
you
you
$50 fine or something.
I shouldn't say that, because actually, part of this project that the person is also doing are the dig safely tickets. So the planting, any new planting that would have
Yeah.
called out for a dig safely, those are being tracked too.
Okay.
And technically, if you're removing or stump grinding, you should have called for dig safely. So the plantings should be part of that.
But
The
again, you don't know-
removals are,
again, you don't know if they did them.
well, I mean, I guess with the dig safely's, we would have to keep track of which ones those were and have them go check them all.
And what kind of tree they planted,
Yeah, because when they say to replant, they don't tell us.
they don't
what
tell us
type.
what they're.
Yeah.
Well, there's always a mountain with
I
it.
look forward to I look forward to you're gonna put something in the report that goes, well, we check on the way to the grocery store on the weekends.
That's when you check too, I'm sure. You start time.
I see, I do.
I know. Because that's life.
The only other thing was the communication from Sarah that came through, which I also forwarded around to everybody. I don't know if anybody had opportunity to read it and has any comment on that.
I didn't have-
She couldn't be here tonight, so she asked that I circulate it, which I did. She makes some good points in there about, infrastructure and climate change. Similar to what Lynn said earlier, the same tree sparked, the communication from her. So I didn't know if anybody had any thoughts on that.
I haven't read it.
You haven't read it, okay. Then I would just ask,
Sometimes
I would just ask, I know it just went out a couple days ago, it came in late. So just if you have a chance to read it, and if there's any thoughts or comments on that, we can discuss it next month. That's it. I don't have anything else.
It makes me think.
You have to adjourn officially?
Yeah? Any, nothing else? Okay, motion to adjourn. Debbie?
I second.
All in favor?
It makes me think that like when the Memorial Tree Fund plants a tree, we should